Welcome back to Untaming Masculinity, the podcast where we tackle issues relevant to men and their journeys to reclaim their masculinity. I'm Dan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend Brad. What is going on tonight, my friend?
Not much, man. Just having an interesting day. I was telling you right before we hit record that stuff broke at work, and my team generally runs point on when there are platform disruptions, and it happened literally 5 minutes before our call. But, normally I have somebody who helps support the Australia region. He's out on vacation for a month. The backup's out of the office right now. The second backup's out of the office right now. So Brad had to come in and save the day. So, but other than that, went on a solo backpacking trip over the weekend, which was awesome. I told you a little bit about that.
I was going to ask you about that.
I mean, you and Jake and Andy gave me the itch. So I got out and had a nice little, it was only 9 miles, nothing too crazy, but it was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was not nearly as eventful as yours, but.
So I saw a little picture of your setup and I had to ask you a question. You hammock camped, right?
Uh-huh.
Did you have a bug net or a tarp?
I did not. So I have a few bug bites on my face. I thought bug spray would be enough to just get me through the night, and
for the most part,
the results are debatable. But it was good, man. It was a good time. What about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm still kind of in recovery mode from our trip. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but when I came home, I got sick, and I had this weird thing happen where I gained 14 pounds of fluid in 2 days, and I went to the doctors and nobody could figure out what was going on. So that was interesting, but pretty much as quick as it showed up, it dissipated. So between that and some kind of summer cold, I've been a little slow lately, but I feel like I turned a corner the last couple of days. So it's good, doing good. Otherwise, we just hit our, you were talking about work. We just hit our end of year, our fiscal end of year this week. So it's been inventory and all that good stuff, but everyone seems to be in pretty good spirits. We made numbers for the year. So it's on to bigger and better things next year.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Your fiscal year ends in June, but whatever.
It's actually really annoying to me because you make the mad dash to make the end of the year. You almost lose like a whole month of summer. So like my summer doesn't feel like it's started yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a really good way of putting it because you're logging tons of hours in June.
Yeah, we put a lot of OT in May and June in the manufacturing side of things to make the number happen. I feel like my summer is just starting this weekend. So, but it's good. Otherwise, things are good.
So we kind of had a topic today I wanted to riff on. I was recently listening to Jocko Willink's podcast with Peter Attia that dropped yesterday. So it dropped on June 28th. Awesome listen. Really, really good discussion. And they were talking about something. It was a very wide-ranging interview about all kinds of various health topics. And the topic came up of starting where you are. So in other words, Jocko was telling a story about how he got injured by Dean Lister accidentally when they were training jiu-jitsu, and it messed up his shoulder. And he wasn't able to lift and do all the things that he enjoyed doing for a long time. For 6-7 months, he couldn't fully extend his shoulder up or his arm up above his head. And he made the realization, he's like, this is the point in life where people give up, they throw the towel in. I got to start somewhere. I got to start with what I have. So I just grabbed a PVC pipe and started lifting that, and I just built my strength back, started that journey. And it brings me to this idea that we've all run into of starting where you are. In other words, we all have egos and we have this way in which we view ourselves. And oftentimes the output doesn't match what we think of ourselves. And we have to have a little bit of humility to recognize that and simply start with where we are. So I guess I'm going to kick that over to you, Dan. Riff on it a little bit. What do you think about what that means?
So as you're talking about it, first of all, I'm thinking about all of the experiences I've had where I've been in that situation. We can definitely get into those during the course of this conversation. But the word that came to mind is inertia, right? And overcoming that initial inertia or that initial friction, whichever one you want to call it, to start. And it always seems like that initial friction is the hardest thing to overcome. And once you get going, it's easier to go. But that initial hurdle of getting moving into something is the hardest part. And I think that's really what you're kind of getting after here is how do we get going? How do we realize that, we may have been this thing in the past, and for whatever reason, we've allowed ourselves to, I'm going to use the word deteriorate to the point that we're in. And now we have to start over, and how much of a mental hurdle and physical hurdle that can be. I'll give a story of myself, and I think I've told the story a little bit in the past, but in 2017, I think it was, I was working out and I was bench pressing, and all of a sudden I couldn't press the weight up at all. I stopped working out. I went home, I went to take a shower, and I got out of the shower and I couldn't even wrap a towel around my waist. So I knew something was wrong with my shoulder. Long story short, I ended up getting it checked out, and I got a torn labrum. I got to go in for surgery. So going for surgery, and the recovery for a torn labrum, and I had what's called a bicep tenodesis, where they, for those that don't know, your upper bicep tendon actually runs through your shoulder joint and attaches up. I think it attaches up near your collarbone. I could be wrong with that last part, but bottom line, with the bicep tenodesis, they cut your bicep tendon, they drill a hole in your upper arm, and they thread your bicep tendon through that, and they anchor it there so that you have less things irritating your shoulder joint. It's typically something they do when you've got a labrum or a rotator cuff tear. And it can cause the recovery to be longer because you got to wait for the tendon to set in your bone and all that good stuff. So long story short, I ended up getting into PT, and it was a good 6 months before I was back to normal. And I'm talking like I basically had to learn how to use my whole shoulder and my whole arm again. For 4 weeks, I was in a sling that held it close to my body, couldn't do anything with it. And then I slowly had to get range of motion back. I had to get strength back. And it's a very frustrating thing, especially at that time I was powerlifting or that kind of workout. I was basically doing Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 program. So just really strength focused. And to go from, benching, heavy weights, squatting heavy weights, deadlifting heavy weights, to literally working with the pink dumbbells at the PT clinic was frustrating as hell. Now, I had a great PT who helped me get through it, and he loved working with me because, back to the topic a little bit, I wasn't one of those people who was just kind of accepting where I was in life. I looked at him and I basically said, this is where I was before I came to you, and this is where I want to be at that same point by the time I leave. And he was like, all right, we've got a game plan now. So I get through that, and it's tough to get started on that path because you're so focused on what you had versus where you're at. Now, flash forward 2 years, I take a bad fall on my mountain bike, and guess what? I got to get done to my left shoulder. Same thing. I torn rotator cuff, but it's basically the same surgery. They did the bicep tenodesis on my left arm as well. And now I'm going into the recovery knowing full well what was ahead of me. I knew that the 6-month recovery that I had ahead of me, which made that initial friction even more, because I'm just sitting there going, I know what I'm in for. When you go into something hard and you've never done it before, sometimes it's easier because you don't know where you're at and you don't know what you're up against, and you're just kind of fighting the daily battle. Whereas when you start something that you've already done once, you know exactly how hard it's going to be and exactly where you are in the journey. And I had a similar experience with our backpacking trip that we talked about last week. But that initial friction to get started in PT the second time was even harder because I knew the battle I was in for, and I knew the setbacks I was going to have, and I knew the hurdles I was going to have to overcome. But I kind of had that mindset that you were talking about before, where Jocko talks about just picking up the PVC pipe and keep going. It's like, I had my pity party, and then I kind of looked at myself and I was like, well, it's either you're going to sit here with a bum shoulder, or it's time to get to work and you get back to where you're at. And I picked the latter, and I'm probably as strong now as my shoulders are as strong now as they ever were. I've been doing different kind of workouts, so I can't say I'm as strong as I ever was, but shoulder health wise, I'm in as good a shape as I ever was, flexibility and all that good stuff. But it's those initial hurdles or that initial friction to get started, because you know where you are and how much work it takes to get there, is so hard to overcome. And it's something that as men, I think we hit this kind of stuff more and more than we like to admit. We're talking about physical stuff here, Jocko's injuries, my shoulders, etc. But when you brought up this idea, I was thinking about a guy who's been burned in a relationship. If you're a guy who's been married for 10 or 15, 20 years, whatever it is, and for whatever reason your marriage ends, there can be a lot of initial hurdles and inertia there to get over, to even start thinking about what's the rest of my life look like relationship wise, and how do I move forward in that path, given what I know about all the work that goes into a relationship like I had before. So there's a lot of places to go here, and just kind of want to get your thoughts on some of that stuff too.
I was drawn really early to the quote by Arthur Ashe. I mean, for a guy who, yes, he was a famous tennis player, but I couldn't tell you anything about him other than that, except for one thing, and it's this quote. It was, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And when I read that, I think of the concept of resilience and how often so many people are not resilient. Starting where you are requires a certain level of discomfort, and that can be physical, that can be emotional, that can be psychological. We've early on, you talked about your shoulders. I had something very similar. I tore my ACL.
Yep.
I'll tell you, after wearing a brace for 2 weeks and then having ACL surgery, the atrophy in your muscles is wild, right?
Yep.
But something I think about quite a lot is, and something we've actually talked about a lot on this podcast, is when I looked back at my relationship with my, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's perfect. I was kind of a jerk and an ass to her today, for crying out loud. But I will tell you, there was a point where it was dark, and I thought that my marriage was going to end because of choices continually that I made. I was continually digging my grave shovelful by shovelful with every stupid decision I would make for a long. And the path to recovery, the path to correcting something like a marriage is really hard. And it's daunting and it seems overwhelming. There comes a point where you kind of look at the road in front of you and realize what has to be done. And you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can see this through to the other side. I don't see a path. I don't know what that looks like. But you get so sick and tired of the situation that you're in, or unfulfilled potential, that you just decide, you know what? I'm going to start somewhere. I don't have it all figured out, but I've got to start somewhere. I've got to put one foot in front of the other. And with my wife and I, that meant her hard things, acknowledging mistakes, being willing to stand my ground when needed. I didn't have a track record of ever doing those things, so I didn't know how the hell to do them.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, put one foot in front of the other, and I started to figure it out. And as a result, our marriage started to heal. It's much like you with your rotator cuff. The first time you did it, you didn't know what to do. But you went to PT, you trusted your physical therapist, you kept doing all the exercises, you just took it one day at a time, and you look back 6 months later, and you were better for it.
Yep.
You were healed. Yeah, it happened again. But you had a track record and an understanding of what needed to be done. Now, the psychological hurdle for you, and I think a psychological hurdle for a lot of men, is, you build yourself up, whether that's in your marriage, whether that's physically, whether that's spiritually, whatever that looks like, and then you crash and burn again. And the question, therefore, becomes, when you're at that moment where you've been at rock bottom, you've seen the summit, and now you find yourself back at rock bottom again, what changes? You touched on it a little bit in relation to your rotator cuff, but I guess I kind of want to riff on that a little bit more. Having gone through something, hit your apex, only to come crashing back down, psychologically, mentally, what did you have to tell yourself to just stare that down and get back up and get back after it?
The first part of what you were talking about was, you've got this huge goal and you're not sure if you're going to get there. Well, two things, right? One is, are you going to be the guy who just immediately admits defeat, or are you going to be the guy who at least tries? Which is a big thing to me. Is, listen, you may not rebuild the relationship, you may not get the shoulder back to health, you may not build the career that you want, whatever that audacious hurdle is, but are you going to be the guy who doesn't even try? Because that's a much worse fate than failing in your journey. You can learn from your failures and you can correct things in the future the next time you do something. If you never try, you never learn. And then the other thing is the best way to start is, it's like that old saying, right? What's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's just make steps forward. By just doing something, you've put an incremental step between point zero and the end. We don't know how many of those incremental steps there are, but you're one further down the path. And as men, we need to be moving down that path. We need to be trying. We need to be, it's okay to admit defeat if you have tried, and you can, honestly look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? I have given it everything I've got, and this goal and the way I'm going about it is just not going to happen. It's not to say even that goal isn't going to happen. It's just this path, this plan of execution is not the one that's going to get me there. But to get back to your point, right? This really comes down to accepting your fate and peaking. Because if you sit there and you go, I've got this huge audacious goal, right? And it can be anything, right? We've been talking a little bit about the physical stuff, rehab, that kind of stuff, but relationships, work, it all jives here. You got this big audacious goal, and you can either choose to say, well, I was great when, Harry High School, I was the best then, but I'll never get back there, or it's too much work to get back there. Or you can roll up your sleeves, put a little bit of work in, and at least try to get back to that stage or surpass it. But if you don't try, that means you've peaked. That means everything else is downhill from here. And is that really the way you want to live? Do you really want to live knowing that your best days are behind you? Yeah, as we age, right? I think Matt Reynolds talked about it the other day. He's probably not going to hit his big PRs anymore, right? And he's probably lifting more now to maintain his strength than necessarily get some of the big PRs in life. He's still a relatively young guy. I bet you he could get some PRs, but his mindset was, I may have hit my biggest numbers ever in the past, and I may not ever get back there. But what's keeping me from at least working towards getting there? Because there's value in that journey. There's value in that hard work. There's value in introducing value into your life like that. So to me, when you see guys who immediately throw in the towel because it's too much hard work, or I was so great back here that I'll never get back there, they've peaked and they've given up on themselves. And that's really sad.
Coming back to this whole throwing in the towel thing, I've been thinking a lot recently about the relationship between pride and fear. So oftentimes something that can be seen as fear, I'm scared to take that first step. I'm scared to do this. It really is your pride. Why are you so afraid of setting foot in the gym? Are you scared of what you're going to find out? Are you scared of what other people are going to think of you or what they're going to see? Why are you scared to put your first foot forward when it comes to repairing your relationship with your parents or your wife or whomever? And that relationship between pride and fear. Pride drives fear, and I think at the same time, fear drives pride. That as you become scared, you look at yourself and you look at everybody around you, and you get this idea that people really, truly are going to care that you aren't going to be able to perform at your best, or that you're not where you should be. That's your pride talking. You think of the guy in the gym who, I'm scared to get in there because I was a high school athlete and now I'm 340 pounds and I can't bench 135 anymore. That's pride. Who the hell cares? As Dan, you know this as well as I do. You set foot in the gym, nobody cares. Like, I have more admiration for somebody who's in there busting it and grinding than I do for almost anybody else, because they're trying, they're putting forth that effort, like you said. For my friends who are doing everything planned, all the stops to try to save their marriage, I look at them with admiration because they set that pride aside. They are pushing past fear, because ultimately having fear and pride, what's that going to result in? That's going to result in you not trying, you not caring, you thinking, oh, I'll live, or oh, I'll be okay. And it's really, coming back to what you said, it's really sad to see how many men are simply okay, or they convince themselves that they're okay if they simply don't try. And all that's going to result in is regret. You're going to look back at some point if you don't try, if you don't start from where you are, and you're going to regret it. It's something where we're all going to leave life with regrets. Like you always think of no regrets. It was such a huge saying. I think when you and I were growing up, like in high school, no regrets. We're going to have regrets. Like there are going to be things we're going to look back on and rue. I look back on things already with how I've raised
I've
my
got
kids.
regrets. Yeah,
I got so many regrets. Like there's even yesterday I had regrets with.
But
how
let me
I
ask you
handled
this:
my kids.
Are your regrets things that? How do I put this? Are your regrets the way you acted and the way you responded, or are they things that you chose not to pursue because pride got in the way?
At this point, I would say it's mostly how I responded or how I acted in certain situations.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and I would say the same. At this point in our lives, as men become into their 30s and 40s, that's the time where we start to, for lack of a better word, settle. And that's the point where we go, I've gotten this far and I haven't done that. So why do I need to bother pushing? Why do I need to reclaim that glory? Why do I need to move the needle in that direction? I've got this good life. I've got this, I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the house, I got the job, whatever you deem as success. And it's where we start to make excuses for not pushing towards harder things. I know I find myself doing it all the time, sitting there going, at 44 years old, do I really need to be doing that? No, I don't need to be doing that. Will it make me a better man? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And that's typically what drives me in my decision making. And I'm not perfect in it. I would assume you're not either. But if you start to say yes to a lot of those things, and this goes back to a conversation you and I had a long time ago. I don't even know if you remember it, but about saying yes to things as opposed to our immediate reaction of saying I can't because. The combination of saying yes to things and avoiding that I can't because initial reaction, that breaks down that initial inertia big time, because all of a sudden you're starting that journey on a positive note as opposed to a negative note, right? If you say I can't because my wife won't let me, I can't because my kids I need to be there for my kids, I can't because I can't take the time off of work, I can't because insert reason here, you're immediately building inertia, you're building friction, you're building an obstruction that you have to get past. Whereas if you take the approach of sure, and then even in the back of your mind, you're going, and I'll figure out a way to make that happen. That smooths things out in the beginning. And, maybe at the end of the day, you're right. You can't go on the 3-month backpacking trip because, your wife and your kids need you. Probably.
right.
But allow yourself the benefit to at least explore the opportunity before you immediately dismiss it. That's one of the main keys of breaking down that initial friction, that initial inertia that happens in these situations. So big part of this is mindset.
No, you nailed it. It makes me think. Remember the movie Yes Man? It was kind of a dumb movie, but this idea of I'm going to start saying yes to things, and
Yeah.
it really did transform his life. I mean, it's a stupid movie, but the idea stands. And coming back to that a little bit, one of the best decisions. I've talked about jujitsu a lot and how it's impacted my life positively in a very, very positive way. The benefits of it have been tremendous. And after you and I were up in Maine in 2021, and we had that jujitsu class, that might be something I want to do. That might be something I'm interested in. I'm like, no, I can't afford it. No, I don't have the time. No, I've never started that. I've never been somebody who's been interested in martial arts. And here I am in my mid to late 30s. I'd make all these excuses. And I remember I was visiting with a friend, and he was actually talking to me about potentially working with him. And he's like, Brad, what are some things you're interested in or some things you want to do? What are some goals you have? I was like, you know what, man, I actually really would love to try jujitsu, but I can't. But I don't have the money. I don't have the time. He's like, why? Why are you telling yourself that? That's bull crap and you know it. And I was like, okay. It's like, if you're telling me it costs too much money, find a way to make more money. If you're telling me it doesn't have time, make time. Okay. And then our mutual friend Clint that we've had on the show a couple times, we were doing a toy drive. Clint was doing a toy drive, and you and I teamed up with a bunch of Higher Council folks and got a bunch of toys that I dropped off to Clint. And Clint was at the jujitsu gym where I now go. He's like, hey, Brad, when are you going to come start training jujitsu? Oh shoot, he's putting me on the spot. I'll come after the new year. It's like, all right,
As only Clint can.
as only Clint can, right? And it stuck. And I went, and I'm like, this is an opportunity where I had all these excuses that I was telling myself, that I convinced myself. And I said yes. And as anybody knows who's trained jujitsu or rolled jujitsu, it's freaking hard. But you build with what you have, and you start with where you are, and it's completely transformed my life. It comes back to you and hunting. You've told the story about how you're sitting there in hunter safety as the 40-year-old with a bunch of kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said yes, you did it. And look at how that's made you a better man because of it.
Opening yourself to new experiences, right? We've got a little off the original topic of maybe trying to reclaim a past achievement, but regardless, opening yourself up to new experiences, new journeys, and that kind of thing, it's a powerful thing. Not only in the sense of does it allow you to expand your horizons, become a better man, but the mindset is contagious, and it propagates itself into different areas of your life. Once you start saying yes to things and just kind of have a I'll figure it out mentality, you start to see that happen in different areas of your life. You start to see it in your marriage. You start to see it at work. You start to see it with your friends. You start to see it with your kids. And it opens doors that you might not have even known were there in the past. I know for me, it's allowed me to do things in my career. I've made mention before. I'm running the manufacturing side of our business. I'm an engineer. I was a design engineer for years and years and years, and a program manager. I never ran manufacturing. I don't know. I know how things go together and how they're designed to go together, but I don't know how like a production floor runs or anything like that. I do now. But somebody came to me with the opportunity and said, "Hey, listen, we think you'd be good at this. Would you consider it?" And with my whole soul, I wanted to say no, but I forced myself to say yes. And I have taught myself, or I have achieved a new skill set that I never would have had in the past because of that. And it's opened up opportunities for me to meet people and to do things that I never would have done in the past, because it would have been so easy to say, no, I don't do that. Or no, that's not my, my area of expertise. That's just one little thing though, where that happened. And then that kind of mindset has propagated. My wife has come to me with things, and it's been like, okay, yeah, we can give that a shot. Random vacations, random trips, random things around the house, whatever it is, where I would typically say, no, we don't have the time, money, resources, et cetera, to do it. But yeah, we'll figure out how to do that. Let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. And we move forward. And just having that mindset shift, it's what you don't realize too is how mentally taxing saying no can be, because you're constantly looking at things and going, I can't do this because ABC. I can't do this because we don't have enough money. I can't do this because I'm not physically fit enough. I can't do this because I don't have enough time off. I can't do this because I don't know. My kids won't be able to keep up on that vacation. Whatever you're talking about. It's very easy to find reasons to say no. But much like saying yes brings a positive mentality to your world, saying no brings that negative mentality into your world, and it just dwells. By saying yes and by opening yourself up to new opportunities, experience has shown me that I'm a happier person because of it. And as a happier person, I can now be more present in my life as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a community member. So there's just compounding interest that occurs with opening yourself up to these experiences.
You actually really hit the point that I was going to mention is the man who is willing to say yes, the man who is willing to take risks. He is a happier man, a much happier. Like, you think of anyone who's willing to rest on their laurels, not take any chances. The no, I can't because, guys, there's a lot of cynicism. There's a lot of regret there. And genuinely, I can say without doubt that the men that I know that are happiest are the men who are willing to say yes, who are willing to take chances and take risks.
Yep.
To set their pride aside and start from square one. And, that's a testament to you. Like, you're a huge example of that. It's a testament to guys like Clint, and going way back to, when we talked to Andy. Andy's an awesome example of that.
Yep.
Like, you look at the physical transformation that guy's undertaken after having cancer. He looks like, he's a little man, but he's a jacked little man. Love you, Andy. But that's the thing, is you take risks, it transforms your life. You say yes, it transforms you. You become happier, you become more fulfilled, you become better. So
And I want to say this. I want to say this and be very clear about this to the guys listening. Guys, you have a right to be happy. This bullshit about I have to put in the work and I have to provide and I have to protect and I have to do all these things for my family, for the people around me, and I don't have the benefit of being happy, that's bullshit. You have the right to be happy, and not only do you have the right to be happy, but you have the duty to be happy for those people. If you present as a happy person and you bring a happy man to the table, everyone else around you benefits. If you bring a negative or an upset or an unhappy man to the table, everyone else around you feels that and is brought down by that. So not only is it your right to be happy, it's your duty to make yourself happy and find a way to make yourself happy, because it benefits everyone, not just you.
And I know I talk about this book all the time, but in Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, one of the concepts that Dr. Meeker talks about is when you are upset, when you are miserable, when you are cynical, your kids, and especially your daughters, see that and they think it's their fault. So if you're not doing your damnedest to be happy, you're going to drag your family and your loved ones down.
And we're not talking about some kind of forced fake happy where you sit in front of the family and you put on a happy face. We're talking about pure joy, like really, truly in your soul, you're happy, you're content. That doesn't mean you don't keep pushing for more, but you can be a happy, content person while still searching for more. And it involves opening yourself up to experiences and, doing new things, doing hard things, working towards goals. If you sit back and say, I've hit the best I've ever done already, and it's just a coast from now, you will not be as happy as you will be if you're pursuing new stuff and pursuing new adventures and pursuing new goals. So you owe it to yourself and those around you to be doing that stuff so that you bring the best person to the table and everyone else can benefit from it.
That's fire.
The more I think about this, the more I think about how we as men are trained to just be the quiet guy in the background who goes to work, makes the money, takes care of the things that you're supposed to take care of as a man, and nobody really pays attention to our mental health. And this really isn't where we're planning on going with this topic, but it's so important as we start to discuss this, that we're looking at it and going, it's important that we take care of ourselves too. And it's important that we find joy in life and we find happiness in the things that we do. And we find meaning in the things that we do. If you go to work and you make great money, but it's a job that you hate, are you really benefiting your family? Yes, they have nice things, and your wife drives a nice car, and your kids go to a good school, and they have the nicest sneakers and all that good stuff. Great, those are things. Do they have a father and a husband who are present and happy and creating memories with them that they will have for the rest of their lives? Probably not. Whereas you might make a lot less money at a job that you actually enjoy, and you come home with a smile on your face, and everyone enjoys dinner together, and life is good. That is more important in the grand scheme of things than just being the stoic guy who sucks it up and does the quote unquote right things.
I really don't know what to add. That was awesome. That's very, very prescient, and something where if you feel that you're that guy who is not happy, who's doing everything you can to get by, who's grinding, you're grinding, you're hustling to take care of your family, and you're sacrificing yourself for their well-being, you're sacrificing yourself for your mortgage and your car payments. Take a long, hard look in the mirror and then start to ask yourself some of these things that Dan mentioned.
And you're going to have seasons of life where you do stuff like that. That's not what we're saying. When it becomes the standard, that's when you need to make changes, right? Yeah, you're going to go through hard times. You're going to go through times where relationships aren't right, where money's tight, where things happen, and you've got to put on the brave face. You've got to just buckle down and do the right things. But it can't be all the time.
There comes a point where that comes at the expense of those who you're telling yourself that you're trying to provide for.
We've talked about legacy before, right? So this comes down to a little bit of legacy too. This comes down to what is your legacy? Are you the guy who provides only, or are you the guy who provides but is also present and really makes that model of what a man should be to your son and what a man should be to your daughter, so that he knows what to grow up to be and she knows what she should be looking for in a future spouse? My argument would be it should be the latter. You should be the guy who provides but is also present. And you do that by investing in yourself with these experiences, with this hard work, with these journeys that we take. And we don't need expensive journeys. We don't need expensive, time-consuming stuff. It can be you work with what you got to do things in the moment. Yeah, maybe you can't go on a backpacking trip like I went on last weekend, but you know what? You can grab a bag and go for a hike in the woods around you. I guarantee it. I don't care if you live in the middle of New York City. You can get somewhere and go for a hike for a day and get out in the woods and enjoy yourself if that's what is going to get you to that level. So it's just about finding what you can do, when you can do it, and how you can do it within the realm of your reality, and opening yourself up to new experiences.
Love it, man. I don't have anything else to add. I really
Cool.
don't.
Well, it was a good episode, man. That definitely took a little bit of a turn that I wasn't expecting, but I got pretty pretty passionate about that.
It evolved in a good way. I got to see you really fired up. It was awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, obviously, dude, that was a good conversation. I enjoyed having it with you. I hope the guys found a lot of value in it. If you guys did find value in it, make sure that you're hitting us up on your podcast player and leaving us ratings and reviews. We've been going over them a little bit lately, and we could definitely use some more. So if you haven't already, especially Apple, Spotify, those are the big ones, reach out, give us a rating and review, not just the 5 stars, but write a review too. That really helps with the algorithm to make sure that this message gets spread to other guys. In addition to that, you can be checking us out at our website. It's untamingmasculinity.com. You'll find show notes for this and all of our other episodes there, as well as links to our social media. Speaking of social media, hit us up on there. We're really active on Instagram. Check us out. Hit us up. Let us know what you're doing to not only pursue new adventures, but how you get over that initial inertia when you know that you've got something hard to do. You know, what actions are you taking to go forward? We'd really like to hear your stories. So reach out to us. Make sure you're connecting with us, and make sure you come back next week. We got some great content in the hopper here, and we're really excited to share it with you. So until then, we'll leave you with just one question. What are you doing to untame your masculinity?